Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda, Cities ABC and Open Business Council series. We are a fast-growing YouTube and podcast thought leadership channel focused on profiling the global leading inspiring people, CEOs, authors, technologists, academics, and people that are framing and creating a new vision for our world, and especially looking at solutions, how we can actually get better results for the problems that we are facing. In this channel, we've been actually highlighting ideas, products, inventions, software, books, and solutions to the multiple challenges and opportunities we face in our cities and our society. But we face especially, and we actually profile especially people that are inspiring, people that are doing fantastic projects, and people that are trying to transform our world with all the areas and all the challenge from fourth industrial revolution to blockchain, AI, and all the frontier technologies that are disrupting and as well accelerating our evolution as humanity. These podcast series are produced and distributed on citiesabc.com and openbusinesscouncil.org and syndicated on intelligenthq.com, fashionabc.org, edgefink.com and tradersdirect.com, our associate partners and as well media platforms. Today, we have with us Namir Khan. Namir Khan is one of the top leading fintech influencers in the Middle East and North Africa, and as well as chairman of the MENA Fintech Association, MFTA. She is an advisor to leading fintechs, leading corporations and organizations and governments, and he was awarded as MENA's Future Fintech Leader by multiple organizations and entities. In terms of his work, he's been working in different areas between finance, technologies, and innovation, and regulatory systems, and as well is the chairman and founding board member of the MENA Fintech Association. During this tenure, he has spearheaded key fintech initiatives with regional regulators and global monetary authorities for the development of regulatory regimes of various fintech verticals and establishing strongly needed conducive fintech ecosystem, plus helping banks and insurance companies to transform into future forward organizations. Welcome to our series, Namir Khan.
So in terms of my education, I'm a master's in business, like typically like there's so many of masters in business. I mean, apart from that, I actually started off my career focused on logistics. So I was in the logistics industry before, and then after that, somehow, somewhere, I had the opportunity of stepping into insurance, and I got into the insurance industry, fared really very well. I mean, being someone who was scared of numbers initially, and then being someone who was leading a huge force of people in an insurance company, kind of actually enabled me to overcome my fears, and of course, at the same time, lead in the insurance space itself. So that's how I typically kicked off I would say my entry into the financial services world was actually via the insurance industry itself. And when I kicked off from there, I was actually group heading bank assurance over there and had a large portfolio of 3.4 billion, one of the largest, was managing that as well. At the same time, was one of the youngest, Mancom members. Back in the days, I was like around 23, 24. And in an insurance industry, an average age is like around 45, 50. So what was quite an achievement at that point of time, I would say. And then at the same time, getting a large portfolio, a business portfolio, which was a cash cow for the entire insurance group itself, was an experience of its own. After that, I've been working on multiple projects with multiple billion-dollar firms as well. That includes not just basically limited in UAE, but also working across the GCC. Most importantly, in the ASEAN region as well. I was in Singapore for a small stint, did some work in Japan as well. So been working broadly across the globe and with leading organizations. At the same time, fintech has been my passion, and the only reason why fintech is my passion is because of a couple of things, right? So by the end of the day, what is fintech? Fintech is all about providing ease, access, convenience, transparency, affordability, and delight. That means removing friction from the overall journey of any specific industry itself. So be that logistics, be that insurance, be that banking, be that retail, or be that anything else, right? By the end of the day, it's all about removing friction were the customers. So typically that was my passion, and that has been my passion for the longest time, to remove friction and make things a lot more seamless. Therefore, I came into the financial services in terms of fintech, worked very closely with leading fintechs, leading organizations, helped digitize, work with them, work with capital markets as well. So the journey has been quite interesting. Ups and downs have been a part of it. A lot of laughter, a lot of cries, and at the same time, a lot of growth.
Very good. No, I think like anyone in business. So in terms
Yes.
of the work you've been doing, and I think some of these career highlights, I'm particularly interested just as a note. So you mentioned
Yeah.
insurance, logistics. This is like key areas that have been digitizing and that are critical as well for all the background of business and finance and different areas. So can you just give a bit of context of that background before we go to the
On
MENA
how
Association?
I basically shifted from logistics
Yes.
to supply to finance. Well, I had qualified for HBS, Harvard Business School, back in the days, and after that, I got a scholarship in one of the leading institutions to do a program, and I was doing that program, scholarship program, and then over there, I was accompanied by leading CEOs of different organizations, and I was only the non-CEO and the youngest member of the group. And somehow the other, one of the CEOs, in fact, a couple of them reached out to me, approached me to join their organizations back in the days. And the person who basically pushed me for insurance was quite adamant that Amir come for insurance. So I did my research on insurance. I'm like, okay, fine. So I had a couple of job opportunities in my hand. One was for an FMCG, and an FMCG is a very well structured, large FMCG. And I really understood that, you know what, if I go there, I'll scale well, but most probably I'll be a part of a system, right? And maybe the growth opportunities would be limited for a person who's like a, I mean, for me, I'm like a freestyler, I mean, going out and disrupting things and doing things. And on the insurance industry, I saw a lot of problems when I did my research. And when I saw a lot of problems meant like the industry was lacking, was severely slacking when it comes to growth. The industry had issues in terms of talent. The industry had issues in terms of, having lethargic systems. The industry had issues in terms of having an average age that is crossing 50. So I said, you know what, a young gun like me would definitely have a larger opportunity to come in and disrupt the space. Reason being because there's huge opportunity. What I need to do is to work hard on my game and be a lot more apt with how the industry operates, and then step into it. So I did a lot of screening, and I did a lot of simultaneously, I did a lot of introspection whether I should be jumping into the insurance industry or not. And after, contemplating for almost like 10 days, I decided to jump onto the insurance industry. And I think that was one of the best decisions I made. Rather than going into an industry that was already well structured and settled, I went into an industry where there was a huge opportunity to disrupt, because every small thing that you do will be a big thing in terms of the overall industry, because nothing had been done. So that was typically the thing that had happened, and that's how I basically decided then to jump onto the insurance industry. Yeah.
Completely. So, and right now, coming back to your work with the MENA Association, and as well everything that you've been doing, so it's quite impressive, and it's one of the most dynamic fintech organizations internationally, because of course all the Arab Middle East is first of all thriving in terms of innovation. There's a lot of fintech and blockchain areas, but as well wealth tech and big data, and as well digitalization in general. So can you tell us about MENA first, and as well I think the real time is MENA-fintech.org, but the organization, but a bit of the organization, how did it started, and a bit what it is for people around the world listening to us.
So Middle East and North Africa is a huge and a fantastic region full of opportunities, right? Why it started this, so I think we'll talk about the opportunity later. I'll leave some stuff for later, but why did the association start? See, I mean, innovation is happening globally, right? We have been one of the most progressive regions itself, I would say, in terms of adopting technology. Then at the same time, there has always been, so in the world of fintech, financial technology is a combination of multiple stakeholders. When we're talking about multiple stakeholders, that includes regulators, that includes innovators and fintechs, that includes incumbents, which we call the banks and the large organizations that have been operating for the longest amount of time. Now, in anything that you do, it is pivotal and it is critical to have a consensus towards things. One will go, it's not that people be going into all different arrows in all different directions and be heading nowhere. There needs to be an approach, a strategic approach, a defined approach via which we are able to achieve our goals. Now, the goal of the association is to ensure that we are actually improving and we are able to implement an environment that is a lot more conducive for the fintechs. Now, fintechs are those players who are coming into this space doing a couple of things. Number one, changing the way finance is being done. Number two is that if you are changing the way finance is being done, the next thing that happens is that you may have to work on your regulations, because the regulators are there to protect the right of the customers. But the business had been done previously with the way how the larger banks were operating. But now new technology companies are coming in and changing the way the business models operate. Now, if the business models are changing and the way they operate, then of course the regulators need to have a more deeper connectivity to the system. Therefore, what MENA Fintech Association does, that it bridges a gap between the larger fintech ecosystem and the regulators and the banks and the corporates, the academia, bringing everyone together into one single place, one single roof, and being able to have a single vision, via which then we're able to implement those regimes, those regulations, that environment that is not just conducive for growth, but that is conducive for entrepreneurship, that is conducive for the growth of the economy, the large economy itself as well. Now, that's one thing that we do. The second thing that we do is typically work with the organization, so not really organizations, but different countries across the globe, and then working on the fintech trade angle, enabling fintech trade. So one is the environment that you have created. Now, what happens with the environment? So you have organic people who are working, or the organic growth, which is the resources or the talent in the region that is building up technologies and then serving the region. But at the same time, if you're bringing in international investments coming in from different countries, is what we also do as well, that we encourage the other countries to be a part of the overall larger ecosystem over here, set up the companies over here, and then of course serve the larger population and of course serve the larger opportunity in the region itself. So MENA Fintech Association is an association that brings together all of these key stakeholders into one single place, have a cohesive voice, have one common voice, and most importantly, ensuring that we have a very conducive fintech ecosystem by working closely with all the 22 regulators in the Arab world, and of course, on the other side, all the fintechs who have been changing the way finance has been done.
So that's impressive. So just to understand, I think people don't know about the MENA Association, that is the Middle East and North Africa Fintech Association. Can you tell us some of the members you have? You mentioned 22 regulators. I know that you have major banks. I'm sure a lot of other different organizations. Just to understand the different parts of what you have in the association.
So typically, the association has multiple members, right? I mean, on top of my head, if I was to name a couple of them, we have Ripple, we have Token, we have MasterCard, we have, you put me in the spot, so many of them. They feel bad now if they see this. We have Dappy, we have Tarabut Gateway, we have Lean Technologies, we have so many more. Temenos, I can go on with the list. So we have a large number.
I see that in your website you have from financial inclusion to AI and big data, insurtech, policy and governance, payments, women in tech, Islamic banking.
We have 12 different verticals that we're currently focusing on. Correct.
No, that's amazing, and I think it's. I know I'm not expecting you to tell them all, but we'll put as well lists in the text to the interview, just for people to understand. So, just a couple of questions I have related with this. So, Middle East, I know that has been one of the most dynamic regions in terms of regulatory frames, and as well a lot of sandboxes, accelerators between both the central banks and the governments in general.
Correct.
And as well, you just mentioned that you've been working with the 22 regulators. So can you tell us some case studies or one or two case studies that want to highlight for the rest of the world? Things that
brilliant. I think it's a great time because today only we have launched the open banking vision. It's called the open banking vision, the open banking landscape of the Arab world. Now, that is one of the most comprehensive reports that you would find on open banking, let's say, and it's a prime example of what collaboration can do. So in that, we have almost 18 central banks who have participated in the report. We have Arab Monetary Fund. We have, of course, some of our key members on open banking. Like I said, some of them are MasterCard, Tarabat Gateway, Yapi, Lean Technologies, Codebase, One Connect from Singapore, and multiple others who have actually worked on this report itself. And I mean, that is, I think, one of the most prime examples of how we enable collaboration. So one is that, and of course, I've been working very closely with the regulators on multiple regimes, and regimes that include, for example, some of the upcoming regimes on payment services providers and the electronic money licenses that we have been working closely on with the regulators itself. So once again, building up strong cases, but at the same time, we believe in strong delivery too, not just working technically at the back end, but we also believe in creating content for the larger audience itself to be able to understand how the region typically operates. So there are a lot of reports out there, on open banking itself, but there's nothing that has been more specific towards the region until now, as the report has been launched, which is once again available on our website too, which is MENA Fintech report. So yes.
Oh, fantastic. So one of the things I'm particularly interested to hear your opinion is, so the MENA region, so Middle East, North Africa, has two main areas. So one is the Middle East that has been very dynamic, very innovative in terms of everything that has been happening. And then there's North Africa that is still very under-financed, or at least that needs a lot of financial inclusion. So it's a big population, it's a fast-growing market. And as well, the two things have complementary, both for Islamic finance, both from all the innovation that comes out of this. So what are you trying to do in this kind of bridge the two worlds, and as well the opportunities? Because I know that a lot of Middle East firms and organizations are trying to invest in Africa and North Africa, of course. But I just want to understand, for people listening to us, some highlights that from your work on these areas.
I mean, Denise, I'm going to be first highlighting the region's opportunity, which is then going to partially answer what you're saying. Yeah. The region is having 380 million people. 380 million, which is a huge population itself, right? We have the largest, one of the largest and the most impressive mobile phone penetration, standing at 110%, right? Smartphone penetration stands at like around 65 to 70%, averaging out like 66, 67. Average age of the region is 23 to 24, in between that, right? Highest capita, per region itself, right? At the same time, highest consumption of the internet in the region. Highest adoption of the platforms that are coming in. People are ready to adopt to new platforms as well. Now, with all of this brilliant numbers, on the flip side, the numbers speak something else when it comes to finance. On financial inclusion, with this amazing spread of technology, we stand at a mere dismal 15%, which means 85% of the people still in the region don't have a formal bank account, right? So that's a huge opportunity. It's not a sad thing. I would say it's a huge opportunity for those who see an opportunity. I think that's a brilliant opportunity. It's a $1 billion opportunity. Insurance landscape stands at around 3.6%, right? So, and life insurance stands at 0.67%, right? So not even 1%. So that's a $1 billion opportunity in all ways, not just for the fintechs, but also at the same time for the platforms who are going to be stepping in. And then now platforms are expanding into financial services, right? So I believe that the region has a great and humongous opportunity in that sense. And it's one of the most best and untapped regions in an already saturated world, where such a market has become a lot more saturated. So, I mean, that's how I see this region. And that is why you would see the cross-border investments and investments being put into the region itself, because it's a larger opportunity for anyone and everyone who is not just willing to execute, but who is looking to execute in the right and in a lot more relevant fashion, because you could not come into the region and then implement something that had been done in the US or the UK or Singapore and implement the same thing in our region, because the region is different. The region has different cultures. The region has different languages or maybe accents, right? And the way of living is different. So we cannot replicate the same thing that we have been doing in other parts of the world. The strategy for all of these players need to be a lot more relevant to the region. And however, largely, I believe that the opportunity that we hold in the region is humongous, and hence you would see all of these activity happening.
No, completely. I agree completely with you. And there's a massive opportunity. And I think if you tap as well into all the Islamic finance, we have 1 billion people at large that are under the same culture, the same religion, and the same financial
Correct.
principles. Yeah. So very interesting. So just unpicking, and I know that you're limited in terms of time. So in terms of the fintech ecosystem, and you have a lot of different areas in your website. So there's kind of I would say 4 areas in particular that are right now somehow coexisting. So there's the traditional finance, there's the fintech innovators, then there's the blockchain digital currencies, and then we even have a 4th one that is all the central banks digital currencies. I know that Middle East has been innovating in the last 2, both in blockchain digital, actually the last 3, in fintech, and as well most of the central banks are right now moving this direction. And you mentioned open banking. So how do you see all these different areas? Because especially this is kind of a massive velocity happening, but like you said, there's a lot of things still to go on the back, and I'm sure that that's what you're trying to do with your dynamic association. But how do you see all of these things working together?
I think all of these things have to work together, most importantly. So we cannot just basically go out, because all of these things are interrelated, right? If you're looking into CBDCs and then you're looking into blockchain, once again, very closely interlinked. Fintech, largely all of this comes into fintech, right? Blockchain partially, I mean, certainly comes into it because blockchain is focused on other industries too. But by the end of the day, in the end, fintech is the common thread. Financial services will always remain the common thread in whatever industry you are, because the medium of exchange needs to happen, right? I mean, exchange needs to happen of any form, of any sort. That's one thing. However, on the second bit, which is saying that how can these verticals work together? So like I said, fintech is on the top because that's the main initiatives. Okay, I mean, that is something that is basically having a lot of subsets, which include CBDCs. Then you have payments. Then you have RegTech. Then you have, let's say wealth management. Then you will have Islamic banking and multiple other initiatives. But how the country has been operating and how the region has been operating. On the blockchain side, already there are multiple key initiatives that have been launched by at least the local government over here in the UAE, which means that you've targeted to make UAE a blockchain, or Dubai a blockchain city. You've targeted to basically go on blockchain when it comes to your ports. That's one side. The multiple initiatives that I can continue to list down. You can go on blockchain for your property. That's already one of the projects that's already in place. And simultaneously, when you're looking into CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, I can tell you, since I've been working very closely with the central banks on this, most of the central banks are jumping onto the CBDC exploratory side. They're working closely and understanding how CBDCs can be implemented in their economy itself. Because CBDC is easier said than done, because you have to understand the economics, you have to understand the model of CBDC, the central bank digital currency. You have to understand the way of operations. You need to understand the control that you need to have in place when you're launching a CBDC. So that's going to take some time. But as you must have seen, yesterday only Central Bank of UAE and Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority had launched a joint report on the other findings. So, I mean, that's just one step forward that is telling you that, you know what, I mean, things may be a little slower. You're not seeing things moving too fast, but things are moving, because over here in our region, despite the fact we move very fast, but at the same time, we try to assess and evaluate things very carefully before taking the step forward. Because once again, the regulator's best interest is to ensure that the customers are protected and the sovereignty of the economy and the country is also in place. Now, the other thing is that how do these things work more and more together? Like I said, so everything is interlinked. That is why you have focus and initiatives coming in focused on every single vertical separately. And by the end of the day, right, all of these initiatives that are being launched right now by different countries. I mean, UAE has been leading this space, but different countries have been launching multiple things. For example, Bahrain launched open banking. That's something that's being worked on in UAE as well. Egypt is working on it. Saudi Arabia Monetary Authority is working on it. So there are multiple. So I wouldn't really say that it's difficult to have these different projects being implemented or being executed at the same time. I see that there's a strong need for such initiatives where different projects and different initiatives have been operating and will continue to operate because it's important. By the end of the day, most of the things are interlinked. So if A happens, then B happens. So therefore, projects are also interlinked with each other. So I mean, that's how I see this happening. And certainly the region is leapfrogging in terms of the initiatives that have been taken. And even the banks have stepped onto it very strongly and aggressively. The banks have basically started implementing their blockchain strategies, their open banking strategies, and at the same time, different, like I said, initiatives that may be coming in on different focus or verticals for fintech.
Completely. And I think one of the things I saw that you guys are doing that is quite impressive is the education and the knowledge above and a lot of research. So can you highlight some of these things?
On the education piece, what we're doing closely is working with Ivy League universities who basically educate and create fintech awareness for not just the existing financial services employees or workforce, but also for the non-financial services employees, which includes young university talent. So we work very, very, very closely with the academia locally and also with some Ivy League universities. And what we're doing with them is creating very relevant, we actually help create very relevant course curriculum for these universities that can be then taught in the region over here. And that is a lot more relevant because, I mean, there are books and there is a lot of content out there, but that is once again focused on different regions. We help and we work with these universities to do that, one. Second is we work with large corporates and institutions once again to deploy educational courses and workshops for universities to ensure that we have upcoming talent more and more coming in. Third is on a university level as well. At the local university level, we have certain programs already ongoing with some of the local universities and helping them establish their fintech units to ensure that the education can be imparted.
And that is amazing, and congratulations for that work, because I know that is, like you mentioned, fintech is a collaborative area, and I think we cannot afford not to play around this, and there's a lot of strengths on that level. So one last two questions. So one, in terms of the highlights that you've been doing, and I know that you guys are doing a lot of things like you mentioned, is there any particular highlight that you want to look into the MENA and as well the MENA Fintech Association? And you mentioned as well the opportunities in the region. Let's say for a fintech here in London, where I'm based, or in New York, why they should go and engage with you guys, besides, of course, the audience and the market, but as well on the regulatory part, on the incentives and different things that are critical and that are fantastic over there.
I mean, if your question is why this MENA region, right? A couple of things. One, the opportunity which we had highlighted. I think there's matchless opportunity. One, and I think given this opportunity, I mean, that's why I'm here in the region myself, because it's a humongous opportunity, and that's why you would see daily some large unicorn expanding into the MENA region. That's an indicator. It's a market indicator for you that house there. Second, the region is young. It's more responsive, right? So it's more responsive to what's basically happening in the space. Third, the government leadership is extremely supportive in every single way to ensure new innovative models, new technologies are brought into the region. And lastly, most importantly, is going to be the incentives that are being given out, such as DIFC has its own set of incentives, ADGM has Hub 71 providing their own set of incentives, and that's how it's basically currently taking place. So I would say certainly one of the best regions to be in.
Yeah, it is, and that's as well what I've been finding, and I know that you're doing. So last thing, so what are your views on our society, technology, and digital transformation, especially with COVID-19? I know that in the rest of the world, COVID-19 has been accelerating transformation, and of course, a lot of digital innovation and fintech. How do you see that in a region that is, of course, like you said, 110% market penetration on mobile, but as well that has its own challenge, especially in North Africa, but as well opportunities?
So my few things I would like to say, I would like sum it up in almost 10 seconds, 10, 20 seconds. COVID-19 just accelerated it. The customer needs for ease and access and convenience and transparency and affordability is never going to die. That is only accelerated. Therefore, if you were to provide all of this, there is going to be high dependency on technology itself. So ease, access, convenience, transparency, affordability, and most importantly, if you're able to delight your customer. And that can only happen when you have access to technology, and most importantly, when you have access to data. And the society is only going to get a lot more reliant and dependent on all of this, because we are heading towards a world that is going to be hyper personalized. And yes, so hyper personalization is a human need. And all of these five factors that I mentioned are critical as well. And without this, society cannot be heading forward, and all organizations and companies and tech companies and fintechs and startups will be focusing on making the entire environment a lot more seamless. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I know that you have a limited time. I think I have a lot of questions, especially with implementation, and especially I know around blockchain and different areas. I don't know if you want to say just some last notes before you go, because
No,
I know that
I think you're doing a great job. Thank you so much for having me here. I think you and the team are doing a fantastic job, and I really enjoyed this conversation with you. You had interesting questions, and most importantly, it's always important to actually spread the word out and to ensure that as long as we're able to bring an impact to the broader audience, why not? So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for having me. Always available to answer any questions and queries, and happy to support.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate. We'll put all the links to this, and thank you so much, and congratulations for the excellent work you're doing over there.
Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you so very much. Pleasure speaking to you.